it might be long enough to go.
Okay, I think we're just getting people back to their seats after.
So we're going to use this one as
Thank you, everyone, and sorry for that. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to read the third question out again, and that is, there is a gender bias against adequate and equitable funding for women's services in Toronto. How will you ensure the needs of women's services are amplified?
well, I'm going to amplify them by standing up and making sure that I represent. There is a gender bias. There are institutional and systemic systems in place that stop us from accessing services. This applies to women, this applies to gender diverse people, people of colour. Equity is not something that needs to be considered in scarce supply. Equity is abundant. When we design equity and inclusion into what we do, we eliminate these issues at source. So when a place is accessible to one person, it is accessible to all. When the system for assigning funds is fair, it is fair to all. What we see here is the symptom is a breakdown of the gender bias, but the disease is an unfair system at source. And being able to point that out is one of the many blessings that I've been able to do in the past. Circling back to the previous question, I actually helped institute the Human Rights Code that you discussed, working with Barbara Hall many years ago. But once again, you can change the law as we have done. The thing that changes hearts and minds is by suiting up, showing up, and ensuring fairness at source. You good? Thank you. It's not me, I promise you. That's all right. We know you too.
Sir, would you mind repeating that once again?
My apologies for that. Okay, there is a gender bias against adequate and equitable funding for women's services in Toronto. How will you ensure the needs of women's services are amplified?
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. So this is actually a very interesting question for me because it actually is something that I've dealt with my entire life. Not only through my organization of understanding inclusion, diversity, equity, belonging, creating fair pipelines for everybody to have equal access to opportunities, but I was also raised in a single parent family. My mother was a single mother once my father passed away when I was 12 years old. And at that, she was forced to go out into the workplace. Now we all know that women do not make the same as men. And at that time, in 1996, was subject to me $3.25 an hour raising 4 children. So having that said, I understand the nuances of what barriers are placed against women. What barriers are placed against women's equal opportunity to access programming. And so what I aspire to do here as the next city councillor is to actually create programming directly targeted to women, but not just create grant programs or relief programs. It's actually creating pipeline programs that encourage women's growth and development within certain sectors and within certain industries. We've seen it happen at McGill University where one applicant out of 500 applied to now where we're looking at 53%. So it's actually creating that non-existent pipeline. And as my colleague here said, this is a systemic problem. The only way to truly change, make transformative social change when it comes to systemic issues is to actually change it from where it started. Thank you very much. Sorry, I see my cue.
Thank you. So, for the last 12 years, I've been social justice activist at City Hall. And many times, this topic has been discussed at City Council, how to address the issue of inequality in the City of Toronto. There are many ways to address this problem, but I will ensure, if I get elected, that funding is always available for a women's program. As I mentioned, I started my introduction, I had 2 daughters. And yes, I will fight to ensure that funding for my 2 daughters in the days ahead, in the years ahead, if they come to a situation where they lay off or something happening in their lives and they're unable to find affordable housing, that there is available programs that they can help them and their friends and everybody else to ensure that everybody has access to a free, barrier, home, and funding in the City of Toronto. But regardless of what that's for, we don't have an ally in that for, so we are ourselves at the city with a little help from the province and the feds. Thank you.
I have the privilege of growing up with very strong women in Martin Road. My mother and all of my aunts were all leaders in their fields, and in my family, mommy and daddy were equal. And I think that's where I'd like to start. I think it begins with me understanding that there are certain issues that are different when it comes to women. And as a man, I must listen to their voices. I cannot let my paternalistic attitudes control or decide what I do or how I act. I have to listen to the myriad women's organizations that are out there. Those are the voices. I need to hear them amplified. But what I do promise is that I will do my best. In fact, I will do my darnest to ensure that you have a place at the table, that you get a piece of that pie, that you make sure that women who are being subjected to violence have safe places to go, that they have the different treatments that they require, be they, what do we call it? My apologies. Sanitary napkins in schools, etc. I think it's really important that we start and provide those bases. But I also think it comes from a place of respect as being a man. I must make sure that I support them. Thank you.
Thank you. So there was a study that I read last week that indicated that violence against women is up 40% in the GTA. And, I am surprised, but I'm not surprised. And so, even at my time at the hospital, for 2 decades working in the emergency, I supported women fleeing domestic abuse. And I've seen, how difficult the process is and how it is life-changing for so many, especially those, who have children and have no supports at all. So I know firsthand the value of services for women in our community, and there are many here in Toronto Centre, to be quite honest. Before I left the hospital, I worked with the Red Door, trying to get women into those spaces. So as a city councillor, and again, based on my experience as a professional healthcare worker, I would definitely continue to support the organizations that exist, but more importantly, to actually create more services, not only in Toronto Centre, but across the city. It is needed more than ever, and we as a society need to wrap our arms around our most vulnerable citizens and make sure that they have the supports needed. And we as a city hall, do have funds available to our partners here to make sure that happens.
Thank you. That concludes our third question, and we'll start with Dave for the fourth one. Food access and security is a huge issue for all demographics across the city. Dixon Hall's Meals on Wheels program is the largest food program for seniors in the downtown east. However, this program and many other food security programs are not adequately funded. What are your plans to address food insecurity and funding for programs?
Thank you so much for that. Now, I'm not sure if anybody knows, but there is actually, and this is not a joke, there is actually an app that exists here in the city where we can access food at very discounted prices for free from grocery stores, from community services. It actually exists, and so what I think when I look at food insecurity, I know that this is a huge issue, especially for us today in this day and age, in this economy, and within this community. What I would do is work with private sector, like the ones that have created this app, work with social enterprise to bring those services directly to people. At the end of the day, there's only so much Dixon Hall to do, right? There are 120,000 doors in this ward. How many cars are you going to, how many volunteers do you need to deliver meals to everybody? How many donations do you need? It's actually not the responsibility of one organization. Food insecurity is the responsibility of our community, for each one of us to take care of our neighbor. And so what I say with this is each one reach one, each one teach one. And what we need to do is let our community know that this is a problem. This is not just a small problem, this is epidemic. And by doing so, we encourage more organizations with economic development to say, if you want to start a new business in the city of Toronto, what are you also giving back? Just like we do with developers with our 3%. What goes back into the community? So you want to come here, you want to start a business, you want to employ some people. What program do you have to help the community in which you are offering your service and your business? Sorry, thank you very much.
Thank you. In 4 years from now, I should be able to qualify for this home-made deliveries. At 220 Oak, at TCSU building, we regularly see volunteers going up the stairs. But the demand is huge, but the supplies is low. How do I address that? Well, there are many ways. Increasing the Ontario Works rates, your ODSP, the Canada Pension Plan. I'm going to repeat again. Can you hold my time, please? Thank you. So we have a challenge with technology tonight. So the demand is high. How do I address food insecurity? As I told you, as I expressed this to John Tory, the mayor, at the Toronto Police Services Board and the Toronto Council, the roots of violence is poverty. The roots of where we are doing not able to feed ourselves is because the Ontario and the ODSP and Canada Pension Plan are low. So we need to increase that in order to ensure that more people have access to food and able to buy groceries. Going to the aisles of the grocery stores is like a luxury, what to buy, what to purchase today, or what not to purchase, because we have also other dire needs to pay, other bills to pay. So food insecurity is becoming now a crisis, and in Dixon Hall is providing a great service to the community, but what is the answers? As I mentioned to John Tory, poverty is one of the roots of what is going on in the city. Thank you.
Food insecurity. I watch performance on my building. I think it's every Tuesday as people line up for the food bank. And when I come down here and I watch people line up for the food bank at the church, in the street. It is a serious issue. How do we address it? Well, I think we have to be innovative and start thinking outside the box. As the number of people mentioned, giving people more money through OSB or OW, so they can get us food. But I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to start tapping into hotels, restaurants, places that have food that are not used that we're going to throw away, and use that to start supplying people. One of the most innovative things I saw was I went to Saskatoon recently, and what they have on the streets is these fridges outside. And so when people leave a restaurant and you have food left, you just go and put it in the fridge. And that's there for the homeless people. This is how I think we need to start addressing that. But we also need to start thinking that people, food banks are, everybody, we're in a crisis right now. People are not working, food banks are not getting the same amount of food that they used to. So we need to, when we're giving or getting people to give to food banks, we have to tell them what to give, what people need, because otherwise it's pointless. So that's the way I think we need to do that, and thank you very much. Bye.
So we know that inflation has risen to 8% recently. And we know that watching the news every night, we're obsessed with the news lately. But we know that seniors, have no food. They have to watch their fixed income, and they have to watch every dime. We know that students also have limited income, and they too have access food programs within the universities and colleges. There's no easy answer to the food insecurity. It's almost as bad as the housing crisis we're facing. People are starving, and that should not be the case. But as a community leader, and I am a community leader at the school board currently, and those are the things that we provide meals, breakfast, and lunch to students throughout all our schools. That's something that I have championed throughout. But one of the things the city can do, as the council can do, is actually partner up or advocate with the metros, the Loblaws, and others to make sure that they actually give back to their communities. And again, working with Dixon Hall and other places to distribute food to people who need it. And as Mr. Johnson mentioned, there's a lot of food being wasted across the city, which is actually great, and supermarkets can actually provide support to various organizations in and around Toronto. So again, as a city council, that's something we can champion. We can work with our community partners to make sure that we could at least diminish or mitigate food insecurity downwards.
Okay, so I think the question was, what are we going to do about it? Not what can we not do about it? And the fact of the matter is, I grew up in a time when I saw old black and white movies and soup kitchens, and I thought, what a terrible thing. Thank God we don't have to do that anymore, and yet here we are. This is a crisis. The problems, the root causes are many, but the number one cause is poverty. The cure for poverty is money. It's simple as that. The fact is that the City of Toronto manages Ontario Works, mismanages it, and does not provide enough money for people to buy the food they need. Second issue, yes, there is waste, but there isn't sufficient meaningful employment or opportunities to get out of debt, to actually work in the community, so we don't have employment opportunities. And then we don't have enough transitional places for those of us recovering from mental health or addiction to allow part-time work, to re-engage with the workforce as we try and re-engage as residents of supportive housing. I don't believe we have to wait for this. I don't think we can wait for this. It's amazing what is done here to help this issue. But it shouldn't be normal that people line up because they cannot afford food. We need to hold some of our food supplies accountable. There has been massive profiteering in the last 2.5 years, largely because of claims about supply chain issues. But they haven't reduced the prices since those supply chain issues have been solved. So there's profiteering going on there. These are all things that the City Council, who is actively engaged and strong, can take a run at. I look forward to hearing what else happens from the province, but we can do things right here at the municipal level.
Thank you for answering that question. Be patient for 1 minute. The life expectancy of individuals with HIV/AIDS has increased. Therefore, access to complex care for those aging and living with HIV/AIDS is needed more than ever. Please share how you plan to make HIV/AIDS and aging healthcare resources available and accessible.
Thank you for the question. I honestly don't know much about HIV. Personally, my family or myself, we haven't been touched by this illness, but I'm sure that, I'm sure that many families here tonight, they're looking for that answer, how we ensure that the lives are, they live comfortable lives in view of their having a disease. My girlfriend right now has cancer, stage 4, and she's at home. So I know very well how much is the disease called cancer, and it's affecting her. I know her lifespan is not going to be longer than usual. The expectancy for a cancer patient is less than 3 years. So I hope that more medical advances are made to fund solutions for those who are suffering cancer. But I'm glad that we are making advances in the field of HIV so that they can last longer and have a more prolonged life with their loved ones. But in my experience with my girlfriend who has cancer stage 4, I know it's very short. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, people with HIV. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay. So yes, people with HIV, there's no doubt about that. The concerns with that now are not they're going to die from AIDS. They're going to die from heart attacks, pulmonary diseases, all the other things that everybody else is dying from. HIV is reached a stage where right now people can take one pill. It's amazing compared to 1984. And what I think what has not happened is that the medical system is not kept up with the needs and requirements of people who are aging with HIV. We need people who understand that and advocate for that, because the reality is that there are many organizations, they're called AIDS service organizations. In this ward, actually, that is where most of them are residing. We need to give them more. They need more funding. They need to be addressed from a collective point of view. We're 5 hospitals in all of the needs of people as they age with HIV. It's a challenge. It's difficult. There's still a lot of stigma surrounding HIV and its treatment. So for a lot of people, don't reach out. They're afraid to reach out. So we have to address that. I think also, as going forward, I think we need to understand that what exactly these people need. They need supports in housing, they need supports in medical, they need in many cases to pay for their medications so they remain adherent to their to prevent the illness from to continue.
So yes, people are living longer and healthier lives people who live with AIDS and HIV, and that's actually amazing and wonderful. In addition to that, I think people actually need to have more access to housing. I know the Red Guy Center, for example, just expanded a facility for gay seniors. And I think that's incredible. Again, 5,000 months of amazing work. We need more organizations like that, not less. But more importantly, again, going back to my counseling background, people are living longer, yes, but they also need, mental health support. They need counseling, and that is not always available to them, and that can spin people in a downward spiral in regards to, and it affects the employment, So we as a community need to do better to keep people connected, make them feel valued and respected. And, you know, again, as a community leader in the form of a city councilor, I make sure that, you know, I wrap my arms around the community to make sure that everybody feels respected and valued, and the services and supports they need is there. And also, too, funding is a big part of it, of course. So make sure that, you know, these facilities are well funded, if not directly through CD initiatives, but also too through advocating for other fundings across the system.
Obviously, HIV/AIDS is not just a gay issue, so I'm glad that there are legacies of the gay centre, but that's not, I think, the question was asked. What we have here is, as we grow older, medical lives become more complicated. It's a blessing in disguise. We disclose that I have a disability and identify as such, and that my disability is based on the fact that I had, in the past tense, was immune compromised. Thankfully, due to chemo, I am much, much better today. Those are long-term effects that will live with me forever. I'm a member of City Park Co-op, which is cooperative housing with 750 units. And within that co-op, we have a system called Aging in Place. The idea being that the longer we can stay in our own homes, the better it is for us, for our extended family, for our chosen family, and for society at large. This is one of those perfect win-win situations when doing the compassionate thing is also the most cost-effective thing. So I'm a strong proponent of aging in place, and I'm a strong proponent of the PSD, of the social work program. One of the ways in which we can improve this as city councils is by assigning PSWs to specific areas. And in a large place like Dixon Hall, we have many residents, or indeed a co-op, having a PSW in place in the building saves all of that backwards and forwards, builds a relationship, and is one of many ways that we can improve and extend aging in place. And that's something that we can do at City Council.
Thank you very much. And I think what was disclosed earlier, that people living with HIV/AIDS are living much longer than they have before in the past. I think this allows us as a community a great opportunity to share more empathy and compassion and understanding. So I actually think this is a wonderful thing, because what I would do as the next city council is actually work with exciting, amazing organizations like this that have put this together to advocate for their support by the province. We know that healthcare is a provincial issue. And so where does the support come from? It comes from the province. So I would work with organizations like yours to advocate for true support from a province that has many more resources, but use our power as a community to advocate for the support that's needed on that front. Thank you very much.
Really well, and I am so impressed with everybody adhering to the stop when she puts that sign up, so thank you. I'm actually going to skip some questions and go to a question that came very late in terms of wanting it to be answered tonight. And so this is going to be a question I'm going to ask, and then we will take questions from the floor. So if anyone has any questions, I think that there were some sheets that were handed out that you can ask your own questions. And if not, we have a small enough group, I think, that we can ask questions if need be from the floor. All right, last question. Given the more prominent role of mayor in the council, how will you ensure that our ward's concerns and issues remain a priority on the council table? Anybody want me to read that again? Okay. Given the more prominent role of mayor in the council, how will you ensure that our ward's concerns and issues remain a priority on the council table?
Okay, this is a very interesting issue. It's interesting because finally, the mayor now has power over which he can buy. And I think that's part of the importance of what's going on with that change. This is something that has happened in many other countries where the mayor does have a major power. For this board, what I can do as the city councillor is to ensure that I prioritize the incidents and requirements of the people of this ward and bring them to city council. I cannot be quiet. I cannot be silent. I must absolutely keep on target. As I say, I do not go to meetings for the sake of meetings, and I refuse to sit back. I will refuse to sit back and have what is necessary in this ward washed over or missed or laid aside. I'm very familiar with what we need to do in this ward, what the priorities are: transportation, housing, dealing with the police. These are critical issues, and these issues I'm sure are forefront in dealing with the mayor. That also means, though, that this is a chance for deal making, because the mayor will also need my vote to get things passed. So this is how we need the back and forth, cooperation, a little bit of discussion, and who knows, a little laugh and a shake of the hand. But I think that's what we have to do. We have to do this. Cooperation to ensure that our work, what we need, is forefront. Thank you.
Thank you. As a school board trustee, the last 6 years, when I'm working with my colleagues on the board, we focus on issues, not politics per se. And I mention that because a lot of the things that happen in front of you, there's a lot of relationships, that are formed and bonds that are created in order to actually affect change. And thankfully for me, for 2 of the 6 years I've been trustee, I was vice chair of the board. And one of my responsibilities is actually meeting with the mayor quarterly to talk about city and school board issues. So I do have a relationship with the mayor already, in that, he knows my work ethic and what I stand for and what I will and will not do. And I hope to build on that relationship to bring change not only to our ward, but to our city at large. And quite frankly, the issues that we face here in Toronto Centre, be it around housing or addiction, underhoused, it actually has been amplified across the city. And talking to the mayor, he too shares some of the concerns that we have here. So I hope to find some common ground that we can actually champion together to effect positive change here in Toronto Centre.
I think it sounds like some radio control thing. Is it maybe wrong or something? Check, 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 check. Yeah, it's very harsh, very harsh. Okay, try and get a root here. The Strong Mayor Act is law. I don't like it, but it's a fact. It's already been passed, and the first time we'll have to deal with this is on November 4th, after I'm elected. How do you deal with a strong mayor? Simple answer, with a strong council. Working with others is something that I've done throughout my career as an advocate. I've worked with all the major parties, and again, sometimes with parties where there are quite deep differences of opinion. But finding the ability to navigate that is something that I have a track record over 30 years of doing. And as I may remind you, done that at the federal level, at the provincial level, and at the municipal level. The idea that a councillor, what we need to look at now is the role of the council has fundamentally changed. Simply can't go out and deal with cases on a one-by-one basis. It's much more like being the chief executive officer of a large company. John Tory himself describes himself as the chief executive officer of Toronto. And I would describe myself as the Chief Executive Officer of Toronto Centre. That's how I intend to keep our ward issues on the table, not just relying on a certain amount of collegiality, which is important, but making sure that we can find a way that is in our mutual best interests. That's how you get things done, by kicking back, and not by separating or engaging in confrontational behavior, as has happened sometimes in the past around partisan politics. So that's how I intend to deal with this. Just gently sit down, and very carefully, and this period, and everything else is now your problem.
Thank you very much, Nikki. I will say with integrity and steadfastness. As I mentioned earlier before, my one job is to sit here, listen to you, see you, understand you, and take your concerns to council. Isn't that what you're going to elect me for? To take your concerns to council and mayor. How do I deal with this? As an entrepreneur over the last 25 years, I don't accept no as an answer. I keep working until I get what I need done. And that's the way I've worked in municipal, provincial, and federal governments around the world. That's the way I work in business, and that's the way I work for you. If anybody knew what it took for me to get here today, is it okay if I get a bit personal with our group? I'm going to share something that not many people know, but I showed up today. Last night, my house was broken into. It was robbed, cleared out, and destroyed. And I had a conversation with the organizers thinking that I would not be here today. But one thing held true, and it's the fact that, as was mentioned before, this is an open ward, and there's an opportunity to make a change in our community. There's an opportunity to stand up for each and every one of you, and there's an opportunity to represent you and your concerns to the city. As we know, it is a rough town out there, and after speaking with each and every one of you, one of the concerns was safety. I want to bring that to City Hall. I want to make sure that I'm there to represent each and every one of you. And no matter what happens, that is why I'm here. That is my one role as your next city councilor, to make sure your voice is heard, that you are seen and you are understood, and that the city gets things done. At the end of the day, this is the economic powerhouse, social and cultural powerhouse of Toronto, Ontario, and therefore the country. They will need to take our voices seriously.
Thank you. For the last 12 years, I have been an active member of the City Council. I have sat at City Council chambers for over 12 years, listening to several mayors, beginning with David Miller, then Ralph Ford. We fought Ralph Ford at City Council. We fought Ralph Ford on the streets. We have fought John Tory at City Council, and we will continue fighting John Tory on the streets and City Council. And that's what I intend to do. Because when we talk about truth and reconciliation, it's not just words. We want to see transformational changes in society. Reconciliation is the word today. And in order to ensure that, we need to defeat the mayor's powers given by the province. I'm sorry, but I will send it back to Queen's Park, those legislations, because it's not going to do any favor for the indigenous, for black people, or people of color. We must continue on fighting at City Council, and that's what I intend to do if I'm elected your councillor. I will fight for you, I will fight that for, and I will continue doing so. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for answering that question, and thank you all for your attention. Are there any questions from the floor? This question is policing and police crimes, crimes committed by police, is a constant concern in this neighborhood. How will you address this issue?
Well, I believe that we need to change the relationship with the police. I I think the police right now have, we as a council, as a city, you know, have said, you know, here, Toronto Police, you deal with all the problems. I think we need to go back to the basics of policing, which is enforcement and crime prevention. All, you know, the social aspects that we see, you know, I think, you know, we should have more social services communities like this to support some of the issues that are happening around our ward. For example, you know, we have a new 3-digit number coming out, 988, for non-emergency services to attend. And we have great organizations like the Gerson Center and others to attend when there is a crisis of mental health or other. So again, I think, you know, we should go back to the basics of policing, which is, you know, as I mentioned prior, and change the relationship.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do here, because of the timing at 6:30, what we're going to do is we'll ask the question, and I'll ask, I'm sorry for having passed the mic to you, Chris, but ask if anybody wants to answer the question. And so for that last question, does anybody want that answer to the question? Right?
Once again, I encourage you to go to our website because we have a very clear action plan on this. We need to make we need to what we need to do is make sure police do what they're supposed to do, what we pay them to do. We give them $1.3 billion a year and we're not getting value for money. It's as simple as that. Yes, we should not be afraid of the police. Yes, they should be coming out and answering calls for our homes, for our personal safety, and they should not be guarding holes in the ground or otherwise standing around with their arms crossed. They should not be criminalizing people who are simply poor or dealing with mental health and addiction. We have paramedic services which need much more money, and that money should be taken from our entire EMS budget. Fire trucks should not be dealing with drug overdoses. Neither should police. There's money to deal with these issues if it's spent more intelligently, and that's something that absolutely a council can and must do, not just on a citywide level, but as I was at 51 Division earlier this week, and frankly, you know that my other colleagues were, talking to the police, holding their toes to the fire, and making sure that if they don't do the job, we'll take the money and we'll put it somewhere else to good use. This has to stop. There's political football going backwards and forwards. Defund the police, fund the police, the police are great, the police are terrible. The police are people just like everybody else. But this is a job that we pay them to do, and there has not been a chief executive officer making sure that they actually do that job on all of our behalf. Not just property owners, but all of the residents of the city of Toronto, and specifically Toronto Centre.
I want to say that there's also all the people that are supposed to be like mental health, whatever you call them, counselors or whatever kind of people that are supposed to deal with these people be better. As the specialists were dealing with these people, sometimes one of the cops being, like there should be some more, those kind of people dealing with more than the cops. Cops have other things to deal with than, you know, mental health issues. There's just other people involved.
Yeah, so, okay, so as Nikki mentioned, the police budget is $1.36 billion. 89% of that goes to salaries and administrative costs. That means 11% is actually going to policing. I don't know about you, but something's drastically wrong with that equation. As people have said, the police should not be responding to specific calls. The police actually, and this is from the auditor's report, actually spend time checking addresses, checking well-being, unwanted guests, disputes, landlord and tenant disputes, and noisy parties. That is what the police have been doing. That needs to stop. The police need to actually address these issues. Murder, people breaking into your apartment, homicides, etc., etc. This is what the police need to be doing. Crisis teams, as I mentioned to them, that is what should be dealing with overdoses, homelessness, people with drug addictions. These teams actually already have pilot projects in the city. We need to expand them. There's a project also called ACT, which is where they send for mental people who have mental health issues in apartments. These ACT teams will go to ensure that the people are taking their medication. The tribunal, Human Rights Tribunal, has said clearly and stately that the Toronto Police Force is a racist police force. That also needs to be addressed, and that is to do with training. Thank you very much.
For the last 12 years, again, I've been repeating myself. I have been president and active member of the Toronto Police Services Board, deputing time and time again about the issues that affect us, people of color, minorities, and disadvantaged people. The Police Services Board does not care about us. Time and time again, we have told the board, reduce your budget so that we can start to transfer your funds to fund city services that are facing a shortage of funding, like childcare, daycare spaces, food insecurity, and those things that we have been talking tonight. So if we start to if we divest the police in areas like mental health supports, it will ensure that our community is much safer. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do want to share something. I have experience having the police called upon me for looking suspicious in a neighborhood that I shouldn't have been in. This is how I dress. And I was a suspicious person walking in a neighborhood, pushed up against a car, legs spread wide, searched, and handcuffed. Outside of my own house. Outside of my own house. And even to this day, I don't believe in defunding the police. What I do believe in is reallocating funding for the police. I believe in higher levels of education when it comes to mental health, when it comes to the police force, how to de-escalate scenarios, but also any time a police is called for any scenario, there should be two. Not just one police law enforcement officer, but a mental health officer. Somebody who is there to support a scenario where this is non-violent crime and requires heavy force. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we should have any unarmed officers going into a scenario and being unprotected. That's why there is the need for both. But I think the biggest thing that we're looking at here is a lack of education when it comes to how to deal with certain scenarios. And that's what I believe we should be doing, having both. Sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to take one last question, and that'll be to the end of the evening.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm really passionate about Moss Park. And Moss Park is the place where, whether or not you're close to it, you know that a lot of vulnerable people use that as their home. And we saw that more than anything in the last 2.5 years. And I feel really abandoned by the leadership that we had, both municipally and provincially, when they decided to take down 56 trees along Queen Street for the subway. And I never knew about it until I joined the Community Center Advisory Group, and they just mentioned it to us as though it was a done deal. I am now mobilizing people. Why did we not hear about it? And what will you do to make sure that Toronto's plan to make a community center new footprint very
our community involved, engaged, informed of things that I do as school board. And I try to do the exact same thing at City Hall. You know, we have so much, we have technology at our fingertips. You know, we have text messaging, you know, emails, and so forth, to keep people engaged and informed. And that's what I plan to do. And again, even as a trustee, I hear you about the trees. You know, it's really unfortunate we're losing 9 trees, and even though it's natural things that's ripping those trees up, I don't support that at all. But we need to keep our city green. You know, build where we can, have more green roofs. You know, more solar panels. You know, build buildings which are energy, you know, saving measures. So all those things are important. But I do hear you. You know, as a school board trustee in this ward, I've actually had many trees planted. More specifically at Church Recovery School. You know, we had 9 trees, extra trees put in that school. So I think, you know, there are things we can do, but yes, I think, you know, communication is the key. I think that's what you're complaining about or had issues with. Communication is the key. You know, if you take care of the small things, the big things will take care of themselves. And I think, you know, in this modern age, we can definitely be more transparent and keep our community more involved, engaged, and informed. And that's my commitment to you here today.
Is there anybody else who would like to respond? And I'm going to ask that because of the time, 1 minute response, okay?
Given that this other candidate is not admit that. That's it. No, I mean, flawless.
Okay,
I'll do mine before.
You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it.
Okay,
So
my
everybody else goes.
let's look at communication. One thing that I have to say is counselors have a communication budget and are supposed to allocate that accordingly however they do. One thing that I would actually like to do, thank you. One thing that I would actually like to do is regular town halls. Engage the community, inform them. Actually create any new programs with the city with consultation from the community only. Because again, that is my job. To hear you, see you, understand you, and bring your concerns. Next, green city developments, which I think is another concern. We are 20, 25, 30 years behind when it comes to developing green initiatives within this country, within this city, and within this ward. What I would do is actually consult with organizations across the globe. What have they done? What are the best practices that they have done to create more green cities, to encourage more green living spaces, and bring that to our ward? And then, of course, consult with the community to ensure this is something that you would like to see. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I agree with you. We need to maintain that community. We do need some ways. We need to make. You have to ensure that everything works together. I think it's really critical that as a city we push and maintain all that we can to ensure that this city remains green. It's critical. How can we address the broader situation of convention? It's going to be a challenge, I really think. But I think what we need to do is, as somebody said, more community forums. But then again, we can also use Instagram, Facebook, all of the social media. But we must also remember that there are many people who do not have access to those. So how do we meet them? And that's where the community centers. We can host, we can hold town halls there, we can ensure that everybody hears. But more importantly, what I would like to do is to get feedback from each of you and all the members and residents of this community. There's an email address. I want that communication to go back and forth. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to add to Junai's comment. We were consulted about 2 weeks ago by the original affairs office in this North Park plan by Metrolinx. I understand they're going to do some changes in the whole North Park area. I wasn't aware of how many homes they're going to be taking. So I would like to explore more that. I'd like to talk about it because my friends from Building Roots, it's a grassroots organization that are communicating with the community. They're talking to residents, they're talking to neighborhoods, especially TCSU residents, because we want to see the creation of good jobs for the community. That's what's important. Metrolinx actually provides for good jobs, and that's what I have to say. Thank you.
So thank you for raising this issue. It is not a small deal, it's a big deal. I was aware of this before. background for this week candidate. But tree hugging isn't what it's all about. These are ancient growths. You can't replace that with a pine tree or Christmas tree. This is ancient growth. And what this points out is that the city of Toronto has lost control of Moss Park. The community park will be closed down for heaven knows how long. The tennis court will be the trees will be torn down. The roads will be disrupted. And there is no overarching plan making sure that all of this works in some kind of coordinated fashion. It's fundamentally wrong. Park space belongs to all of us and must be maintained at all times as part of our physical and mental health. You can't just turn it into a construction site for the next 10 bloody years and then walk away and say, what are you going to do? We've got a relief line. Nonsense. That stops. Period.
I want to thank you for coming, first of all. It really means a lot to see you here. And I know you all have concerns, and you're worried, and you're not sure who to vote for. What I have, and what I really believe I bring, is lots of lived experience in lots of the areas that have been raised. Addiction, mental health, HIV, housing. I was homeless too. I live in Toronto community housing. I know that needs to be fixed. That needs to be totally just ripped apart and restructured. We need to address the police. We need to address safety. These are really concerns. But more than that, I really want this place to be a place that gets better every day. That we can raise families, that people who are LGBTIQ can feel safe, that we have adequate housing, and we have all the support. It's going to take time, it's a long run, but I know that I can do it because I too, like many people here, have sat on committees addressing these policies at federal, municipal, and provincial levels. I am not afraid to talk. In fact, sometimes they get tired of listening to me and they kick me out of the room. That's what I plan to do for you. Thank you. Yes.
I love our community. I've been here for 19 years, and I have served this community in various ways. And so, yes, we can do better, but it's still a great place to live, to work, and to raise a family. And yes, it's getting more expensive to live here in Toronto Centre. Affordability is an issue. You talk about, safety. Safety is an issue, right? And, again, getting around this ward in this city is getting harder. So public transit definitely is an issue that we can work to resolve. These are things that we can resolve. And you need the right leader to champion these issues. And I have the skill set to do that. I've been doing it for 6 years as a trustee, and I'll come with the same drive and energy as a council to make sure that our community, will succeed. And we will succeed together, right? It's not just the councillor in the seat, but it's all of us together making sure we value change that we need and we want, and we demand and deserve. Thank you. And my website, electusvoice.ca. Please go to the website. Thank you.
This is a job interview. You are the employers. You get to decide who you believe, who's qualified, who's done their homework, who has the experience. And usually in a municipal election, it frankly doesn't matter, because whoever the incumbent is, it's the status quo all over again. But here at Toronto Centre, there is changing. Change is coming. If you vote. If you haven't made up your mind who's qualified to come up now, I don't think you'll ever make up your mind. But one thing about don't think this is important. This, in Toronto Centre, in Toronto, is one of the most important elections, not just in Toronto, but in Canada. It's a job that puts on to think we're the centre of the universe, but we are certainly the economic, cultural, and social centre of Canada. What we do here gets copied elsewhere. If we want better environmental care, better housing, better treatment, better value for money, if we do it here in tiny little Toronto centre, that is going to be replicated elsewhere, not just in Toronto, not just in Canada, but across North America. So there's a real chance to change here. Vote. Encourage your friends to vote. Encourage your friends to do their homework. There's no real chance to change the world. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
In 1998, I founded one of the first organizations that we would consider an activist organization today, the first social enterprise, the Global Change Institute, which focused on inclusion, diversity, equity, and belonging within media. It was not popular. I was attacked by the media. I was attacked by organizations. I was attacked by powerful people for changing the message of the dialogue that was not popular at that time. What I will say, as opposed to other individuals, not necessarily here because I love all the candidates here, most people look at this as a job. What I will say is, what is the title of an MP, an MPP, a city councilor? What is that job? Public servant. This is not a job for me, this is service. This is what I do for the community to move it forward. I will say on October 24th, make sure that you make the right decision for you. There is a very difficult decision. We are filled with brilliant individuals here that are passionate about the community that we live in. And so what I would say is make the right choice for you. Stick with your integrity and who you believe will be your best representative. But I will say one thing. As somebody who founded an activist corporation at 14 years old, vote for somebody who's not going to get paid by the developers, by other politicians, and other businesses. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This is important to keep alive civic engagement. I want to thank all my colleagues here tonight, senators and everybody else for listening to us. But most importantly, as my colleagues expressed, we need to vote. Because if you don't vote, your voice will never be heard at City Council. If you vote, then we will make sure that those changes that you want to happen here in Regent Park, in Jamestown, in Regent Park, in Moss Park, in any part in this board happen. But we need to have a vote. Because I'm going to be honest with you, in the next 4 years, it's going to be hell. Because we have a premier who is interfering with city politics. And as